Welcome, everybody, to the Healthy Indoors live show. I'm your host, Bob Krell. Thanks for joining us here. This is our second week of doing our actual live virtual studio audience. So we're looking forward to having some active participation and commentary back and forth between us, the people of the show, and you, the people of the live virtual studio audience. And today's topic, we're going to be talking about what was the cover story in the January issue of Healthy Indoors magazine, which was what and who to watch in 2021, penned by our editor, Susan Valenti. So with us today are Susan Valenti, who is the editor of Healthy Indoors magazine, and also last but not least, the ever-present healthy building scientist from Hayward Score, Joe Medosch, our co-host. Welcome, guys.
Great. Good to be here. Today will be fun.
Hey.
And a cast of thousands. We have a live studio audience here too as well, which is quite exciting. And this week we'll actually let you talk. It's even more exciting. So again, a reminder to those of you who are just joining the broadcast, there's a reactions button. Those of you who are on the in the live studio audience, there's a reactions button at the bottom of the page. You need to click on that, and then there's an option to raise your hand. So if you have a question, you'd like to get on camera, ask a question, or give a comment, raise your hand. Susan will be our moderator for this broadcast, and she will allow you to come on and unmute yourself, and your camera's already live. So we'll be able to see you and speak with you. So that's kind of exciting. And you definitely could turn your cameras on. You have the option to do that. So
we just blur somebody's cameras. We're like, yeah, get out of here. We'll bring
we're scaring people away, but you definitely, we have no problem with seeing your faces. We request that you're fully clothed when you come on live camera. This is a live show, and we understand the risks inherently there. But we have your name in the registration. So with that, Susan, you penned the cover story. What should we be looking at 2021? 2020 was a tumultuous year for everything, right? Not just indoor environmental, but for everything. But certainly, it's having an effect on the indoor environmental industry, I believe, globally, right?
Well, first of all, I'd like to say that I don't see the 2020 as being a bad year for indoor air, indoor environments. It's always really exciting when on Twitter, indoors, indoor air, indoor environments is actually trending. And that's what it was doing back in March. And I mean, for me, that was really exciting, being involved in this marketplace for, about 30 years now. That's never happened, where everyone is talking about, what I do, on social media. So
we did learn a lot about our industry, which we're going to discuss today. Some of which is that, not just our messaging, but who has oversight. We were shocked at what we didn't know. I thought this year that was kind of an eye-opening thing about. We really didn't understand aerosols very well. We didn't understand the importance of ventilation. There were so many things that we were like, oh, who is an authority on it? Because all of us have an opinion about it, but who is it that I can refer to as to how long my breath will stay in the air and how far will it actually move across a certain type of room? All those things many of them were kind of unknown, or as many people describe, they're in some science paper buried somewhere that nobody can find, and they got some weird name. So those are some of the challenges that we have addressed now, as to how do we get past that? How do we find this great research and put it into common knowledge for people to understand and have access to?
I mean, there's no question that the indoor environments, indoor air quality, have, I think, been driven to the forefront, in the eyes of consumers globally, more so than I can remember in my entire time in this industry, my 35 years, being in this industry. I've never seen a time where more people are more concerned about their indoor environments. Now, that being said, right, that's all well and good. Is it actually affecting a change is the question, and I'm not sure what what long-term changes we have, but we can talk about that. One thing that's interesting that came up, Susan had it in the article, the Well Building Institute, the International Well Building Institute, IBWI, has had their well building program for quite some time now. But just recently, last Monday, I believe, a week ago Monday, they launched a program for their new health seal for buildings, the Well Health Seal. And that got pushed out all over the place, did it not, Susan? It's been on MSNBC. It was on, I think, ESPN pushed it. It was on the some morning shows and all over
Spike Lee
social
produced
media.
it. Yeah, right. Spike Lee was
It's actually a Spike Lee joint, as they say.
Yeah.
No, I mean, like, the commercial is part of a public awareness campaign for for well certified building owners and managers, to get more more building owners to actually have this seal. Is that mine? Have this seal on their building. To have have like a J-Lo or Lady Gaga, me to walk into one's buildings is, I mean, for me, that's really impressive. My worry is that, is it enough to have a celebrity tell you to walk into a building when people don't know what that really means? What is a well health and safety seal? What does that mean to the average consumer walking in, or the employee walking into a workplace?
Well, let's just clarify where those things are. I mean, a lot of those are in large corporate buildings. They're not at your your sandwich shop. They're not in these smaller malls or other places where you may be going inside right now. These are in some ways still exclusive as to the expense and the challenge to put that together. So right now you're looking at, if you were in a large city downtown, you may find one or two buildings that have it or thinking about it. And again, you may not even notice the logo in the past, so you may be looking for it. But LEED has put plaques on buildings for years, and I don't think anybody's acknowledged that this building now is a low energy or has a certain type of environment. So there's a challenge with trying to, I think the best goal would be that if people were aware that there is something that this building could be doing to make me feel safer and feel healthier, because they've been made some type of engineering decisions that this is now a great place to be in, and it is safe. We're very aware of safe. So I think that if you now were wanting to go in and ask somebody about the building, or you realize that icon is not on my building, now you're wondering, should I just keep my mask on, or what else should I be doing? There's several things that are now in the discussion when you go into a larger building.
So I think that's the intent of this whole well health seal, right? This initial ad, it's a 60-second spot, I think, or maybe it's 90 seconds, with a lot of celebrities, Robert De Niro and J-Lo and Lady Gaga and a bunch of other people on this segment. And it's really just to promote it and create awareness. I mean, obviously, it doesn't really describe much. It says, oh, the well seal means it's a better place and people are concerned about it. It doesn't really define that, but their idea is to drive you to their website and get more information. And, so I believe it's an awareness campaign that's pretty much it's geared at getting to the general public, and that is that not something that's different now? We're seeing that, right, in the industry. There's been more talk to the general public about indoor environmental issues than I think ever before, at least in my time in the career. What are your thoughts on that, you guys?
Well, unless there's something like the only time this shows up on the news is if there's a Legionella outbreak somewhere, then they got to explain what that is, or that kind of stuff, or if there's some other conditions that have caused alarm for people to then be thinking about that. So this is actually a great message. That's a positive message. It comes at a good time. I think it's making people aware of what we're doing. So although we can be somewhat like challenging as to, we wish more buildings had well, or if that was more achievable for homes or smaller buildings, but it's a start. I mean, really well is in the infancy right now. So they are figuring this stuff out themselves. They're trying to make an awareness. They're trying to, say, hey, you know what, your buildings matter. And I think that any message is a good message, especially when you have people that you're like, wow, I can't believe that those people came together to,
Mhm.
create something that we should be talking about. So if there were a bunch of scientists, we would all be like, okay, yeah, but there's an impact. Social media matters, and the kind of one of those people probably is somebody that you respect. So people are going to be like, okay, that's interesting. I need to learn more about that.
I mean, the one thing that you did point out is that, you see well, and you think of that as upper high end buildings, right? Like real upper crust buildings. But their program, they are planning on rolling it into even a residential market for normal, not McMansions either, for normal construction market, a version of that. So I think the intent is to try to bring it, to the masses.
I mean, I
What
know that
that's
it's a goal. I registered for the Well Conference last year. It was canceled due to obvious reasons. And I've been paying attention to them for a while. They've been trying to figure out they have a lead for homes. They want to do well for homes. There's a variety of things they do want to roll out. That's why I said they're really in their infancy about what's there. So I do think that they are something that will help our industry greatly to find out a certification that says what kind of materials are in this building, and did you actually test those or test the environment inside? Those are some of the requirements. So the other one that's similar is Reset. Both of them have high standards as to what you're breathing in the house or in the environment. So those are going to come more to the forefront. And if the other thing we did not have in here was that Joseph Allen was a major influencer in 2020, but his book points out how, as a company, you can actually increase productivity and reduce your healthcare costs by controlling that environment. And Well fits right into his kind of philosophy of like, if you really want to reduce, how many times your employees are going to the hospital or the doctors are doing these things, and production does go up. These are all documented stuff in his book that you should be thinking about. Maybe this is something that I need to increase in my building. So if you own the building, if you're a GM and you own the building, these are no brainers.
And Joe Allen, you reference from Harvard, the Chance School of Medical School, right?
Yes, right.
So he's been quoted a lot lately, in this past year. So for those of you in our live studio audience right now, let me throw a poll up here. How many of you have even heard about this new Well program? This commercial spot. It aired on a lot of national TV. It's been in social media, and so we're getting some responses now. I'm just curious how many of you. It's been out for 9 days, right? The launch was 9
A little
days ago,
over a week.
Susan. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we got here. We got 63% have not heard of it from our live studio audience, and 38% have. Interesting. Um, so it appears that more people haven't heard about it than have heard about it. Which makes sense because it's new out of the blocks. And is this going to be a revolutionary thing? I mean, obviously, their organization hopes it is, but it's a start. So one of the things that I think we need to talk about here, and Susan hit heavily on this in this cover story for Healthy Indoors for the January issue, is just the messaging and the words and defining the language that we're using, right? I mean, what words or phrases will resonate to consumers, will resonate to the public, regarding our indoor environments. Is it indoor environmental? Is it indoor air quality? Is it IAQ, the acronym? Is it healthy buildings? Is it healthy homes? Green buildings, right? Susan gave a whole list. I can't even remember all. There was calm buildings, wasn't there?
Yeah, that actually just came up like a week ago. They're actually, like architects are now
Calm buildings?
designing school buildings to be calm, which essentially, would help like kids, of varying, uh, degrees of disability be able to like function in an environment that is actually helpful for them, as opposed to in terms of the noise, the lighting, and not just the air quality per se.
But I mean, it comes back to this whole point that you raised in the article. And even right back to our trademark for for our publication and the show. What is healthy indoors? Define it. I did that in a presentation last year. I was actually doing at the IAQA conference last year, and I put myself on the spot because I couldn't define it succinctly on stage in front of several hundred people, because what does it mean to people? So what do you think, Joe? Weigh in here. What do you?
Wait, so yeah. I was waiting to get my chance to jump in there.
I know I
But one
wouldn't
thing
shut up.
I do want to come back to that the well is doing something that we don't do. In fact, I don't know how many places do it. We do not regulate indoor air. We regulate outdoor air, and that's something we're very aware of. But EPA does not go into your house. They go into your work environment, but in general, they're not really overly active. So well is stepping up, and there is more to well than just indoor air. I mean, it's a holistic approach to the building, and bikes and showers and a variety of stuff that have to do with walking distance. But in general, there are very few guidance that we have, and we did not have that last year as to like, why can't we open schools? Is because we all struggled to figure out what expert to go to about how much ventilation and should the kids wear coats when they go back to school. So those are some of the challenges we have, is we don't have a good guidance system. We keep looking for the next popular person to tell us what to do. Well can fit into that, and I think that that's something that we really need. So that's my input about nationally. We're missing something that does to look to as to what do I do in these environments.
But I even question internationally if we have this is zeroed in. So I put this out to our live studio audience, guys in the audience. By all means, raise your hand, put a hand raise on your reaction button, and we'll get you in here. Like, what are you guys thinking? What's the right phrase, or how do we reach more of a global global audience? Because this is one thing that we have been talking about, is there's been an opportunity to this is I hate to say the pandemic is an opportunity, but it is, because there's a large awareness globally right now. So this is an opportunity. Don Weeks.
Hello there. He said the magic word, international. And now that opens the whole Pandora box or pandemic box of things that might happen. Yes, this is the first event, I think, in our lifetime that has involved an entire, global reaction to a particular indoor air problem. And we've had, if you go back years ago, there were issues with regards to, when they had the Bhopal explosion in India. You had previous problems with various types of asbestos, lead paint, mold. I mean, you can go through all the various things that people had, but nobody had it all. You know what I mean? Nobody had everybody be in one predicament, which is what's happening with this pandemic. And I think that's the reason why we're getting such momentum on an international basis to participate in some kind of program that will allow people to not only deal with the McMansions of the world, but the hovels of the world, where you can actually see where there is problems that they need to have addressed. I think the latest statistics is that it's somewhere over like 2 million people who have died from this particular indoor air quality problem. There's never been anything quite like that. Maybe going back to the 1918 influenza, but that was obviously way before we had this mass media and things of that nature that were taking place. So where do I see most of this going? You can see it if you go on certain people's Twitter accounts. You can see them interacting with each other, academics, researchers, practitioners, and they're interacting on a basis of what are we going to do to try to resolve this matter, and what do we do to make sure it doesn't happen to be a bad problem going forward. So I really do see this as a unique event that could trigger quite a lot of changes in our profession.
Thoughts? Joe, you're never silent, Joe.
I'm digesting. There's a lot to. I
There was
coming back.
There's a lot to digest.
It's a lot to unpack.
Well, I think our role has changed.
I would like to
go ahead, Susan. Please go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. No. Well, I just want to point out when when all this first hit in terms of mainstream media, the only people they were interviewing were like medical doctors, and then all of a sudden, like the Joe Allens of the world, and the Richard Corseys were now or even Shelley Miller was on the Today Show at one point. In a past life that would have never happened. And I'm like, and whenever I think about this stuff, I always remember Ellen Tone a couple years back at the IEQ and Energy show in Maine talk about how, was there ever going to be a time when a medical doctor was gonna, like write a prescription for a healthy home, or like write a prescription for like, all right, how to fix your indoor air quality, and and therefore be able to like, be more healthy in your shelter. So I mean, like all these things come into play.
Well, I think the concept is that can a doctor say, I'm going to send you to a specialist? That specialist is somebody going to come to your house and evaluate it and make recommendations to reduce your allergens or your potential allergy triggers or asthma triggers. So that's been our goal that a lot of us have had for a long time, is that can physicians and specialists acknowledge that your indoor air is actually impacting why you came to see me today. That's that we have not to achieve that. And it's really hard for many medical professionals to realize that they're not in control of their clients all the time, and their goal is like, I can just give you a different medication, versus realizing that the fact that you've got 3 dogs and 7 cats in a small area may be impacting why you keep coming to see me every 2 months.
I mean, but is this not an opportunity for us to to move the ball forward? I mean, I've been in the industry for a long time now, since the mid 80s, and it seems like, this messaging, and Susan's been it forever too as well, and on the publishing side, and we've been dealing with this literally since the 80s, and it always felt like, oh, here's the time where we're gonna move forward. The early 90s, it seemed like there was new legislation. Kennedy and Wexler, pushed proposed IQ legislation through. Henry Waxman. Why did I say Wexler? Henry Waxman. Thank you. It seemed like that was going to be the time, right? Everything was going to happen, and then nothing, and then we've had these surges, and the big mold rush in 2000. Oh, it was going to be all this indoor environmental stuff. So my fear is that while we have this opportunity now to move things forward, and really, there's at least recognition that we need to worry about our indoor environmental issues. But I think it's important that we take this opportunity and keep it in the forefront, and don't just let it, when the pandemic wanes, which it will eventually, are we just going to go back to doing things stupid as usual? Anybody? I'd like to hear somebody else from the audience.
I thought it was a mute question, so I'm like, the answer probably, unfortunately, is yes. That's our nature. So like, okay, yeah.
Well, I hope not.
But look at where all the things that we've done. So it takes a lot for us to really shift. Look at diets and other stuff like that are just such a broad thing. We're eating unhealthy foods, but we still eat unhealthy foods. So all these things are coming to play. Energy, you name it. There's all these things in the industry like, oh yeah, finally we're going to do better. We're going to make ourselves or the planet better, or we're going to make our indoor environment better. And we just struggle to make those types of leaps and bounds. So yeah. Kevin, you have some insight for us?
Yeah, I mean, it's a question we're all trying to answer. How do we reach more of a global audience? I think it just comes down to education. Speaking to as many people and connecting with as many people as we can to promote healthy indoor air, and obviously knowing and having connections with the best of the best technology to implement. And yeah, I'm curious to see what type of technology you recommend to implement to make indoor spaces safer.
So we would like to turn those questions back. So if you were an influencer, what kind of suggestions would you have, or what do you think some of the things are missing in terms of education for regular people that still kind of see this as something that's, I'm trying to figure this out? What are some of your key talking points?
My key talking points are for we deal with commercial businesses. Generally with active indoor spaces, indoor office spaces, and buildings with apartment buildings or office buildings with common areas, and we are promoting ionization, optimized with advanced filtration, and then UV germicidal lighting in high traffic areas. We have some add-ons like copper sheeting that we recommend for high touch surfaces, door handles, elevator buttons. And then we can help with safety support and marketing as well.
So my question would be: Is this particularly just for dealing with COVID-19, and that the transmission of SARS-CoV-2, or is this technology? I mean, I kind of know the answer, but I'm just posing it to you. You know, is your focus really just on the COVID-19 pandemic, or is it just on general indoor air quality? And this happens to be one aspect of you know, that approach.
Yeah, so our the division of our company that we branched off from an energy efficiency company and branded as Air Brilliance. We started out of COVID, but obviously looking to the future, we want to obviously implement this technology to treat allergens, you know, dust, pollen, things that might be making people ill. And you know, I do like y'all's points on you know, promoting healthy indoor, you know, having a prescription. I haven't heard that point of view before. For the healthier indoor spaces to make, you know, to make people healthier and solve it at the root of the problem rather than adding on medications. Because that's, you know, me with my health and fitness background as well. I'm a huge promoter of lifestyle changes versus just adding another pill to the regimen for a disease that you don't even know anything about.
I do want to point out that in the last issue, there was a great overview of all the different technologies that Kevin had mentioned and others have wanted to understand more about, from filtration to ionization to UV. There's all those things are well described briefly, and some links in there. So if you want to learn more about what you can or can't do or think about doing, or just want to have a better conversation, the last magazine did a great job of reviewing that.
Yeah. Thank you.
I mean, you know, so one of the things that I think is really important here, and again, we'd like, you know, weigh-ins from our audience, is what can we do to push this forward? You know, is really my question. You know, again, how do we keep this topic, this healthy indoor environment, this, you know, acceptable indoor air quality, acceptable indoor environmental quality? How do we, not just in the United States, not just North America, but actually on a global scale, how do we keep this moving forward and make something good come from this horrible pandemic? Thoughts?
Paul, you've been here for a few minutes.
Yeah,
so
Paul
can
Burns.
you,
Hi, Paul Burns.
Yeah. Can you give us your feedback? Thank you.
Well, addressing Bob's last question first, what we have found, I'm semi-retired, okay?
You always say that.
I only deal with half a dozen customers. They're all school districts. And right now, what we're doing to push the indoor air quality ball forward is we're doing lunch and learns every week with the maintenance department, the boards, the school boards, the members of the school board. And what we have found is, particularly when we get an audience in front of the school board, they suddenly find $1 million. And that has happened 8 or 9 times since March, where the school boards have found some money. And they're utilizing that money to do air handler and duct refurbishment, and at the same time to install ionization technologies, which we're happy to be able to provide those services for them, you know, because we're nice guys. Anyway, so the bottom line is, while the pandemic is one of the worst things that's ever happened to the world, from an IQ standpoint, directly as it relates to school districts, the parents come wielding the big club to the school board members saying, fix this for my kid. And that's the most powerful force on earth right there. And the school boards are responding, they're listening, they're craving, they're asking for education, information, which fortunately there's tons of it available that we can provide. And it's working. Will it continue after the pandemic? Yes, I truly believe it will, because the normal that we knew 13 months ago is gone forever, in my opinion. But I'm just a dumb country boy.
I'm going to bring Nikki on to comply, but real quick though, I think once everybody gets, majority is vaccinated and they can say you don't need masks anymore, then they're going to be like, well, nobody died, 2 years ago in my classroom, so why should I go back and spend $1 million? Is the challenge. Is, do they all understand that this was a holistic approach and major benefits, including how well you learn? So let's see if they really understand the some documentation that comes out of those school districts that did make upgrades, and to find out that many of their students' grades actually could have improved. So, Nikki, what do you got to add to us?
I think the challenge is just getting the basics accepted. Good filtration, good ventilation, good moisture control, because we haven't even been able to do that, let alone try to control a pandemic through indoor air quality. So maybe if we were to focus more on, I mean, when you go back to who's installing these, who's responsible ultimately for designing and installing and commissioning to make sure it's all installed correctly. And that's going to be our trades. And we need to really educate our trades on these products and the importance of not only installing them and commissioning them, but maintaining them as well is very important. And, you know, we're seeing it, you know, we manufacture dehumidifiers, and we're seeing sales like we've never seen before. And that's because people are grasping at being able to control something right now in their environment, and it's their homes. They're home all day. They didn't realize how uncomfortable their home was. They've got, you know, sweaty, stinky teenagers that they've got to live with 24/7, and showers are going, and we're cleaning and we're cooking like we've never have before in our homes. And so what we're trying to focus on is, okay, what can I control? What can I control in my own house? And I think those are going to be, you know, once we can figure out what those are, what the right combination is, depending on your circumstances. You know, you talked about a prescription method. I actually had a builder call me because the woman he was building a house for had Lyme's disease for a long period of time in her life. And the doctor prescribed to her that her house had to maintain 45% relative humidity during the humid season. And how are they going to do it? And I think that's the other challenge is, you know, if we have people that have kids with allergies and asthma already, and they're being told to get an air cleaner, that's Pandora's box. What air cleaner? Do I need all these bells and whistles? You know, we've kind of made it complicated without just focusing on the basics first. Let's get the basics right.
Well, I mean, one of the things that we do have to recognize here is that, and what you're describing, Nikki, while I totally agree with what you're saying, we have to recognize that the approach and the response we're discussing is really not the same approach that people in the underserved communities in the United States and around the planet have the opportunity to do. You know, it's like and that's a fact. You know, it's like, you know, almost every conversation I've heard on various talk shows and different threads and stuff, they always get back to what you're going to do in your house. You're going to do this, and they don't talk about multifamily living, where really the bulk of people in this country and in many places live in multifamily, or, you know, and they're in underserved communities that don't even have proper water and sanitation, you know, and air filtration. You know, just even think about the outside air. We always talk in terms of get more outside air in there. Well, if you're in India, bringing in more outside air, you know, in New Delhi is not going to really solve things for you. You know, so this is, and again, not to dismiss what you just said, because I think everything you said is absolutely accurate. But this is even a bigger problem. And you know, how do we get this down to something that we can help everybody? I mean, I think we really have to view that. If anything, this pandemic has illustrated is this doesn't matter. You know, it really doesn't matter your socioeconomic status. You know, you still can get this disease, and you still potentially can die from it.
Well, and I think if you look at, I mean, we work very actively in affordable housing, and if you look at the QAP programs, there is a huge focus in our country on trying to make multifamily as healthy as possible. I mean, even more so than what I've seen in custom builder, single family high-end homes. So I think there is a focus on it. But it's money, right? Everything costs money in order to get those products, in order to achieve the indoor air quality, unless you're out in the middle of nowhere.
Susan, we have a couple of questions from the live audience. I'm going to ask that you bring those up and see if we can cover those as well.
Okay.
That was quick.
Um,
You were quick. Go ahead, Susan. You got it.
You got it. One from Barry Moore. Can we find some incentive to get building owners to make changes that will reduce allergen triggers? MPOs and CDCs have a good neighbor incentive to improve their multifamily properties.
That kind of goes right back to what you were just saying, Nikki. So yeah, that's there. I do see much more proactive multifamily things that are happening across the country. Some of them are national, some of them are local, but there's some areas of the country that have very little multifamily. So, but other places, it's one of the growing parts of our housing. Yeah.
So, and I actually have one. I actually have one quick question for Nikki. You talked about the trades. Who do you actually think is responsible for educating the trades?
You're muted, Nikki.
Hold on.
Oh, sorry about that. I had muted myself again. Who's responsible? I think the challenge is, first of all, getting more workers into the trades is a huge challenge in HVAC and all the trades right now, building, construction, everything. And then once you get them in there, they're moving them through so quickly in order to get them out in the field just to achieve the basics. So I think that our trade schools need more support and education focusing on indoor air quality. And a lot of that, what we see is just, the refrigeration and the basics, a lot of the trades, there's not a focus necessarily on indoor air quality. And if it is, it's not a very long one or in-depth one. So, and then, manufacturers, all of us manufacturers need to support these trades if that's what you do, because they need the money in order to teach, and they need the knowledge from the industry in order to be able to pass that along.
So to complement what you said, Nikki, it's not just education, it's also continuing education.
Absolutely.
And the fact that the HVAC contractor of all contractors is probably the greatest keeper of indoor air quality. I mean, they control what happens in those environments, commercial or home. So that is a challenge. So
well, builders are a big part of that too. Sorry. I mean, the builders
you're right.
got to be willing to say, you know what, we're going to allocate money in these buildings, whatever building it is, to focus on the importance of indoor air quality.
Which brings us back to what we started with, was a well guidance or something that is saying, hey, you want to achieve something, and let your people know this is the kind of guidance you're looking for. Yeah.
And that,
I think you need to talk about the general contractor as well as a leader, because if the general contractor is not educating the client and not educating at least in the residential avenue, if you don't have a general contractor that understands the interplay of the mechanical system with the building envelope and everything else, then they're not going to be knowing what to look at. And it's been my experience that I have to know, number one, what the difference between a $25,000 mechanical system is and an $8,000 mechanical system, and that I have to reflect in my price as well as my communication with my client. And then I have to be knowledgeable enough to understand and make sure that my mechanical contractor is delivering the type of product that I've sold. So I think that's where I'm seeing the biggest influence for the trade standpoint is an educated general contractor, and they seem to be the ones really pushing that increased quality mechanical system, at least on the residential custom home side of things. Hi guys.
Well, I gotta say, welcome, Sean. From Louisiana. It's been too long. The pandemic pushed us apart, my friend. But and I see you have not avoided dangerous activities like you and I have done in our entire lives. You're continuing it. And Sean, just so those of you who don't know Sean is a general contractor, but he's also an indoor air quality expert. So Sean actually wears both hats. So you're one of those odd birds that actually diagnoses other people's screw ups and builds your own buildings, hopefully without their screw ups.
Yeah, for the most part, still learning every time, still getting better. Had a lot of help from a lot of people in this group for sure, in learning and understanding and educating and hi Nikki.
So wait, well, I want to plug one thing that was in the actual magazine is that BPI just released the Healthy Housing Principles. This is a certificate. You can just get the reference guide, which there has not been something that is this in depth as a reference guide for healthy homes. It works for any industry, any trade, especially HVAC contractors. If you want to understand the key 8 principles that HUD and others have been using for years. It's $120 or something, 130 for the book. You can take an exam to get the certificate. But if you're looking for something to want to understand more about a holistic approach, BPI has finally put them together. Kevin Kennedy was the main author behind that, and it's a phenomenal resource for anybody who's looking to learn more about healthy housing.
So I'm going to put you on the spot. John Barnett, welcome from Oklahoma. So John owns and runs a laboratory. So, from your perspective, how has this pandemic affected how you guys do things at Quantum? Has it changed your approach?
It hasn't affected how we do them. We do the same things we've always been doing. It's just we seem to do a lot less of it. Our customers have to be out there every day, and they have to meet with people and interact with people and do all the things that a lot of them don't want to do. And so we have quite a few customers that are sitting at home trying to see if they can do it, over the internet.
Yeah, and that's not going to work when you're actually going out to collect samples. There's things you can do remotely. You can do video evaluations and things like that, but the nuts and bolts of actually having to go out and do real, true invasive diagnostics, you can't really do that from afar.
Well, that's the trouble. If you're dealing with somebody who has a problem, a facility that's got some kind of problem, at some point you've got to be there. You've got to look at it. You've got to pay attention to what happened. You've got to talk to people. There's a lot of interaction in coming to the final answer of what caused the problem and what's the right thing to do to repair it. Too many times people just kind of whitewash things and go on their way, but to do it right, they got to spend a little time and effort.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely, I think that's a problem everybody's seeing in the industry, as far as, while there's more awareness, I think, with indoor environmental issues in general, right? There's still, it's difficult to go out and do business like we did at this point. And that's tough. That's a tough situation.
Yeah, but that's going to change, Bob. That's not going to last forever. I assume that we'll get through the pandemic and be able to do things like we did before. Not completely the same, but definitely better. I'm going to put in 2 plugs. Basically, one is for ASHRAE 62.1, which is the standard that does with acceptable indoor air quality. They are in the process, and I'm on that particular committee that's dealing with enhanced indoor air quality. It's going to be a guidance that's going to come out for basically designers, building designers, and that's really the one end of the business that really hasn't been addressed thoroughly and deal with this type of issue. They have something called in the standard called the IAQ procedure, which could be used to enhance building technology in terms of HVAC and other aspects of the building systems. So that's one aspect of it. The other aspect of it, I have a spouse who works at what in Canada is called a college, but would be called a community college or trade college down in the States. They have completely revamped their curriculum to reflect the fact that they're going to be required under the federal regulations to build green. So the people who are attending these schools, they're 2, 3, 4-year schools, are going to come out of that with the idea that they're going to build better buildings than they have in the past. So you're going to have that interaction between the designers who want to build better and the tradespeople who also want to build better. And those two coming together, I think, is going to make a huge difference in the type of buildings going forward.
That raises an interesting question, though, like that I think we posed earlier, Don. The terminology, because like you just said that they're talking about building green. Is building green still a phrase that resonates, or then everything kind of shifted from green to sustainability, and then from there to resilience. Like, what is the right term to define that? What I think they mean by green.
I agree. I mean, a lot of the green standards are more energy related than they are environmentally related. So you're right. It's going to progress towards resiliency. The reason I use the term green is that's what the government in Canada uses, is going green for their buildings. But that doesn't mean that it's just strictly energy savings. We have plenty of energy here in Canada. We can't even deal with all the energy we have. We can't get the pipelines built. But that's a whole nother story.
We don't want your energy. No.
Yeah, there you go. You weren't going to get it anyway. It was going to go down to the port down in Louisiana and shipped overseas. So it wasn't even going to go to you guys. But the point is that environment under the current federal regime, which is Trudeau, that's what they're looking to do. They're using this particular pandemic to build better than they have in the past. And I think it's going to be successful because, again, like I said, it's filtered down to the community colleges. It's working with the design professionals. And I think if you have those two groups working together, I think you're going to have a big difference in types of buildings that are built.
Well, you mentioned green, and LEED has been like the green leader, and they've been pressured to do a much better job of confirming what you installed and actually now doing health product declarations. So they want to know what materials are you putting in there, get those manufacturers to tell us what's in that stuff. And, at least they're focused on a disclosure concept now. And all those things are going to just keep pushing us forward, that let's get healthier products in our super tight, poorly ventilated environments. And hopefully we can increase the ventilation rates. But in general, we are getting I think kind of push LEED to be like, hey, you know what, you should pay attention to what's actually in the environment. And so you don't have to ventilate excessively to get rid of the initial odors from these things. So it is all shifting.
So I'm going to shift it a little bit. Again, one of the topics that we did cover in this past cover story in Healthy Indoors, in that article, talking about the impact social media has had. Susan's pointed this out on numerous occasions, how it seems like a lot of researchers who we never really heard about, never really directly interacted with the public prior to the pandemic, have become the champions of Twitter, right? I mean, there's Joe Allen, Dr. Joe Allen's out there, Dr. Rich.
Not only the champions of Twitter, the champions of indoor environments.
Okay.
I mean,
but they're like,
I mean, they're really the ones out there, doing the heavy lifting right now.
But if I wanted to find out what Richard Corsi was saying or Shelley Miller, I had to go to their Twitter accounts to find out what they were thinking or what was their, position on some of these things that we're asking about. So I'm like, I'm not really a Twitter guy, and I suddenly had to go find them and follow them or go on their past posts to see what they were saying about schools or ventilation rates. That was a major access and resource to what they were saying. I wish there was something better than Twitter past posts to find that stuff.
So you're on the Twitter now?
No, I'm not actually. You could tweet me all day long, and I had no idea that you actually send me anything. So yeah.
Should I do a shameless, Susan? I'm going to do a shameless plug at some point, but I'll wait a little bit.
Yes, you are, but not right now.
Okay.
I'm actually Tim Gould. I'm going to unmute you, so you can ask your question. Tim Gould wants comments on the role of IAQ monitoring. So you guys go.
Well, that's a hot topic. Why monitor something if you can't do anything with it is my approach. So I'm like, it's great to monitor, but just because I know that my particulates are high or my relative humidity is high or low, and I can't control it or actually make adjustments based upon what I'm monitoring, I feel that it's just a mute gadget, another shiny object that is telling me something. So if it's doing something, it's a great fit. If it's not doing anything, then it's just something that people are wondering, what's this number mean, or why is it red? Why is that thing on the wall red? Should I leave the room? Those are the challenges that go along with monitoring for me.
So Tim, unmute yourself and we'll be able to hear you. Lower left corner on your screen. You're still muted. There you go.
Great.
Sure. There you
go. Very good. So thank you. I didn't expect to be popped on here. So we are I work for a company in Massachusetts. I'm a part owner of a company in Massachusetts, and we are.
Where in Massachusetts?
Well, we work for hundreds of builders throughout the state, and we certify that homes meet the energy code. So you've probably heard of HERS ratings.
I am.
Yeah. So so we do that. We also design and install air source heat pump systems. And we do that for both new construction and existing homes. And recently, I looked in the last several months, I've been looking into the, viability of indoor air quality monitoring. And I have found technology that I really like, and I've got some out there, and I can collect the data from my computer at home, and I can monitor a bank or a gym or a restaurant or homes, and I can monitor CO2, total VOCs, temperature, humidity, and particulate matter, and provide a report to the building owner as a measure of the effectiveness of whatever measures they're taking. In other words, a lot of people, a lot of building owners are spending a ton of money right now on things that they're just taking a stab at, right? Okay, let's put MERV 13 filters in. Great, that's very good, and so on. But nobody really knows what the effectiveness of it is. So these monitoring devices, I believe, are accurate enough to become a proxy, an indicator for the level of healthy air that people are breathing. So, for example, CO2, and this stuff is backed up by Joe Allen, by the way. He feels that. So I'm using this system called AWARE, AWAIR.
Yeah, you probably have the Omni if you're able to.
I do.
Monitor.
I have Omnis and AWARE. I have the business, package. So I can sit here on my computer and collect indoor air quality information from around the world if I want to. And so I think it's really, my main point is, and by the way, being energy consultants, our whole purpose of life has been to increase energy efficiency, lower people's costs, right? So, if you are, everybody I'm talking to, the building owners, they're increasing ventilation, some crazy levels, they're opening windows, they're doing all these things, but they just don't know what the effectiveness is. And so they just assuming that they're in a range of healthy air. Well, we can give them, a very sound indicator that they have healthy air. They can feel good. And, I'm telling building owners that, yeah, it should provide you and your employees and your customers some level of assurance that it's not bad. You've got good ventilation. And
I'm actually doing a session for, ResNet conference is coming up, and I actually am doing a session on IAQ monitors. Where are they today and who's using it for what? And I got about 6 or 7 people that I'm doing, short snippets with that are using those. And I have an overview of many of those devices. So that'll be on the ResNet, and I'll wait 6 months and post it on YouTube or something. But the device you have is actually a very good device, just feedback.
Yeah, you have to know what its limits are. And I think that, one of the things that I understand is that, you can look at the absolute values. These devices come out with ranges and lights that are red, green, and yellow and all. But really, you need somebody who understands building science to some degree to interpret, what it means.
But that's true with any technology, though. When you agree, Tim. I mean, $8,000, $20,000, $50,000 pieces of hardware are only as good as the data. If you can't interpret the data to something meaningful, it doesn't matter.
Understood.
As well as assess the visual, you need to connect a visual. You need to understand the environment to what's actually happening there. Otherwise, you're like, it's just numbers, right?
So I think that there's 2 things to look at. One is the absolute values in terms of what ranges we kind of know are safe. And the other is to compare against a baseline condition. So in other words, when you start monitoring a location, a building, you're going to find out very quickly whether CO2 levels are high and there's a lack of ventilation. So just making changes. So you say you enhance the ventilation in that area, right? Great. Then you can monitor the results, and you can see in terms of the difference from your own baseline, what direction you're headed and take it from there. So I think that's sort of more, worthwhile or beneficial way to look at it is departure from baseline as opposed to absolute values.
I will make one
Great.
clear statement, that is many of the devices that you could buy on Amazon or whatever are trend indicators, that they give you a trend, and many of their sensors are doing okay, but some of them are reset. That's a standard to confirm your device is accurate. Many of us are using handheld tools, and you want to know, are they certified? Do they have somebody else to say this is a good reading? So if you're looking for a monitor,
Aware is
yes.
reset certified.
Yes, I know there very few are. So if
Yeah,
you want to
which
use
is
these
a big,
devices,
that is a big point. Vinny Ventura has been waiting a long time to get on and get a question. So Vinny, I think you're unmuted now.
Yes. So my name is Vinny Ventura. I'm in the Metro New York market. I'm a technical trainer and contractor support for a technical rep firm in New York. We rep companies like Residio, HBT Honeywell, Unico, and other companies like that. But I'm essentially an IAQ and control specialist. And I use AirCycle, which is a product that is a partnership between Residio and Air Advice, where they take it. And you guys are familiar with Air Advice. I'm okay. So they take their Air Advice monitor and they have a special I guess program or report that is created specifically for them, and it looks at the 6 points that Tim was talking about earlier, and it's it's a very specific, very professional machine. It's not an Amazon special. You can't buy this on Amazon, and it has annual recertification and testing, so you know that the results that you get from this air cycle monitor are correct. And it looks at all those points, and it looks at it and it compares them to ASHRAE and World Health data to make sure that you're in control in the building. Now it's kind of designed to go up against to target residential and light commercial. So for a large building, I'm not sure if it's the correct machine, but there are other ones out there. But the market for light commercial and residential that are requiring IAQ solutions is massive, and that's my focus. So I do a lot of training. Nikki said earlier I think you were asked about who's doing the training, and you hit it. It's the manufacturers that are supporting the training. So they hire guys like me and I do webinars all the time for contractors to learn different aspects of IAQ, whether it's UVGI, whether it's ventilation, whatever it is. So I do it all the time. But yes, the actual monitoring is key. And this is fairly new. I mean, but I'm having big success, but it is a new thing. And I think that's where the focus has got to be, in understanding what you're monitoring and then applying a solution that's custom to each house. It's not cookie cutter. Every house is going to need a separate solution. And this air cycle program, this report does that. It looks at your problems. It gives you the numbers. It puts it in easy to understand language for the typical end user, besides the important numbers that the contractor needs to know. And then it offers the solution with products for for the particular application.
Vinny, now you're seeing it mostly with building automation, though, right? You're working on the commercial end with this, correct? So it's not so much something that would be in the consumer market. You're in a higher end.
No, actually, no. This is the air cycle is targeted towards contractors, residential and light commercial contractors that are doing work in homes, and because of the pandemic, it's exploded. So I'm training guys on how to not only understand IAQ, what the numbers mean, but then how to sell a solution for what they have encountered, what they found with this monitor. So that's the trick. It's not, you can't just slap a UV light in a duct and say, hey, you got IAQ. You got to do it right. And it's got to be sized correctly. You can't just throw an ERV and say, hey, you're going to have the proper ventilation. It's got to be the right size, and it's got to be set up correctly. That's my job.
Excellent. No, that was great commentary.
So I
Sean,
heard him mention earlier. Sorry, can I? Yeah. So I heard him mention earlier on somebody saying that with these monitors, when the light changes red, there's not a lot to be done. That's always been my concern with monitoring and putting these types of thing in there is when somebody calls you and says, "Hey, my light's red," I mean, are they going to call somebody? Are they going to do something? Like, does that trigger a service call? What's the overall goal of having these monitors in there, other than, like, I guess, feeling good when everything's green? But what do you do when it changes red? How do you go about finding that solution? And are you selling service calls? What are you doing there?
So the monitor is a tool. It's not something you leave. The monitor actually does its work in 30 minutes. So it takes a snapshot of the air. So that the mechanic comes in, the contractor comes in with the tool, sets it up in the I guess the area of the house that's most traveled, most use, because that's going to give you your best sample, because that's where the people hang out the most. And if it's a large house, you can do several tests in several parts of the house. So it takes a report.
This is like a wolf sensor type thing, but new, right? So this is an assessment.
The cool thing about this one is it actually, built into it is a wireless modem. It'll send the information directly to the server, and then send a report back to the contractor's email within 33 minutes, and then the contractor can share that with the consumer. So it's a tool to help you determine the needs and then offer the solution.
I will bite my tongue. I think monitoring should be longer, but we're here to talk about a variety of stuff, not to criticize. That's right.
This is a snapshot. 100%. You should be there. There's different levels of monitoring, but this we're trying to. It'll give you an idea of what is going on in the house, and yes,
at that time, in 30
This
minutes,
is a screening, but this is screening. I mean, that's what you're doing. You're screening, which is, there's a lot of value in that, because that's not being done for the most part right now. So,
any monitoring is better than no monitoring.
Absolutely.
Now, this also sounds like a glorified version of, like, taking a picture of the dust inside your ducts and selling a duct cleaning. Where do you transition from sales tool to IAQ monitoring?
Okay, so you are 100% correct. There's a lot of benefit in setting up a monitor there that's going to data log and going to give you reports over a week's time or over 2 weeks' time, which this can do as well. But as a contractor, it costs money. You're a contractor, correct? Right, Sean?
Yeah, and I'm not being critical. I just want to make sure you understand. I'm not being critical.
It is
product, but just in the general discussion of this.
It's a legitimate monitor, but it has two types of reports. It's got your quick report, which gives you a snapshot, an idea of what the air looks like, and then you can offer solutions. And you can do monitoring over, you can do 30-minute reporting at different times of the day, or you go back in a week and see where you're at. There's also a way to set it up as a data logger, and that gives you a much more detailed report. But who's got the time to do that? I mean, if you've got 4 calls a day, you can run a test every day. You're going to start to see trends. You start to see an idea of what you need to do to solve people's immediate IAQ issues.
So I'm gonna move this discussion towards the end. So our time is tight. I don't want to go too long, and this is a great conversation. One of the challenges, though, is to Indy, Sean said, I'm sure most of them you go to, like, there is something to make that system better. Unless they've got a MERV 13 with low flow pressure and a ventilation strategy, there's probably something you can actually use that device to explain them what you could be doing as an improvement. So it is just a complement to what you're seeing in the environment. So. That was our show. Normally, I do a wrap up and ask a variety of people, but Susan, you're on the spot. So, Susan, you wrote the article. What is the one thing you think will actually happen for us that we'll talk about in 2022? What do you think is that you wrote the article? A lot of great stuff here. What will be the influence of 2021?
Wow, you should have asked me that question like an hour ago, and I would have been able
Probably
to come up with an answer.
Yeah, right. you know this stuff so well. Yeah.
What will be hot in 2022? Is that pretty much what you're saying?
No. What will we be in 2022? We'll do the same show, but like, wow, 2021. These were the things that we conquered or we did. So, what do you think will be popular this year?
What's going to be popular this year? Is that is I think this idea of communities that actually talk about one topic and and get everyone to, like, get off of social media and go to this community and be able to talk amongst themselves in order to move that topic along. That's going to be the real story in 2021.
And,
Many of you are familiar with other discussions. I think this is going to be a key role for our industry, and I'm happy to work with Bob to bring us together. Building science people get together with their beer. Passive house people get together. We are looking
with
for
their
a venue,
wine.
So with their wine, yeah, right, yeah. So we're here with our coffee, and we may do an evening session in the future. We want your feedback, but it was great to see faces. So Bob, why don't you talk about your goal for the year?
Yeah, so I really have to jump into this right now because you both set the tee perfectly. We have something that I think is, not coincidentally, we have something that's happening in the next week that'll be very exciting. Healthy Indoors is going to be launching an online global community, and what this will be, I hesitate to try to categorize it, but it's going to be almost like a Facebook-esque experience where you can actually get on, users from all over the planet are going to be able to get together and get on threads and talk about this, but much more than a community, in the sense that it'll be an online place where you can have targeted discussions, but we'll also be using that as our focal point for our information that we're sharing with Healthy Indoors magazine. Coincidentally, at the same time, Healthy Indoors magazine will be launching our global edition. It's a quarterly digital edition of the magazine that will, rather than being so USA centric, will be having articles from around the planet. That actually launches next week, right before the global community. So we're launching all this stuff in the next 10 days. To actually create an opportunity for people to do what we're doing right here and now with the live show. There'll be opportunities for these same type of engagements. We're going to continue doing the show. As Joe mentioned, we're even exploring doing an evening version, maybe an extended happy hour, after hours kind of version of the Healthy Indoors show, where we can get more people on and really just chew it up and do what we did here today. But this was, in my mind, I'm very excited about what today represented, because this is the first time that I've actually seen an open forum in the IAQ industry where people could come in from anywhere and share information and discussions. And we're looking to foster that and actually create a lot more opportunities for that going forward. So really excited. Joe, do your plug for a Hayward Score, because that's what you do.
So I'm a healthy building scientist with Hayward Score. In fact, anybody can claim healthy building scientist. You could pay me for that title if you wanted, but
I'm an indoor
in general,
environmental entertainer. So
I maybe I'll achieve that someday. So the goal is, if you're a healthy building scientist, you're focused on materials, ventilation, and filtration as part of actually good building science, which most people forget about. So anyway, but Hayward Score is a free online tool that you can use to help assess your home and determine if your home is impacting your health or improving your health. It's free, haywardscore.com. Thanks for the plug.
Yeah, and I'll just continue to plug Healthy Indoors magazine. Currently, you can go to healthyindoors.com and get to everything. You can get to this show live streamed, the recordings of these shows, podcasts, all the articles from all our back issues of 8 years of Healthy Indoors magazine. Our new edition of the Global will be up on healthyindoors.com next week, and our new global community will be doing a formal announcement for that next week. That'll actually reside at its own dedicated URL. And that's going to be a free thing. We're really excited to, literally get thousands and thousands and thousands of you to talk about this stuff all around the planet. Susan's giving me the look, like, okay. So I guess we're way over time. Thank you so very much for joining us. This was exciting. We'll be doing a lot more of this type of engagement moving forward. Susan, you had a question or comment?
About what's going on next week.
Yeah.
For the show.
Oh yeah, duh. Okay. Yes, next week. Definitely tune in on the 11th. We'll be doing a live show next week. It's actually a preview of the IAQA, Indoor Air Quality Association, live online event the following week. IAQA show will be happening from the 15th, next week from Monday, through the 18th. So that's and for this year, due to the pandemic, it's actually an online event. It's all virtual. So we'll have both the current president, Jay Stake, and their executive director, Michelle Buggy, will be joining us for the same type of program format. You'll be able to, if you'd like to tune in, you can come in and ask them questions. We'll be discussing some of what they're going to be bringing the following week. Healthy Indoors is one of the sponsoring organizations for the IAQA event. So we're actively looking forward to working with them and plugging that. We'll have more about our online community in next week's show too. That's when we'll be starting a release. In fact, we may be streaming the show on the community. Yeah.
But Jay Stake is the new current president.
He's
He
the current
wants your
president.
feedback, current president. So, but he's trying to bring the IAQA event and the organization back to the forefront that it was when mold was gold. So he wants your feedback. Please join the show and tell him what's good, bad, or indifferent, because he will listen to you.
Yeah. There you go. So we're looking forward to having you all join us next week. So I guess it's now time to bid adieu because we've taken up more of your afternoon than we have the right to. So for Healthy Indoors Magazine and the Healthy Indoors Live Show, I'm Bob Krell. We're looking forward to continuing the discussion. We'll see you next week, same bat time, same bat channel, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for the Healthy Indoors Live Show.